welcome to Moms on Mics. I'm Joanne.
I'm Cash.
And I'm Sophia.
As we are finishing up the remainder of our Christmas goodies, the sugar cookies for breakfast, the gingerbread and jam tarts with our afternoon tea, most of us have only gained a few extra pounds. And by most of us, I mean me. We have thrown off our eating schedule and our sugars are all out of whack. The new year is only days away now, and with the opportunity to start new diets and healthy eating habits. And to help us figure out how to get back on track, or for some of us to find the track we are meant to be getting onto in the first place, we have with us today registered dietitian, nutritionist, Adrea Kroeker. Welcome to the podcast, Adrea.
Oh, hi there. Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here with you.
Awesome. So, Adrea, you probably see this often. January comes, people have made the New Year's resolution to lose weight. So they pick the newest trendy diet. We've touched on this a little bit on the show before, but as a professional, can you tell us why diets don't work?
Absolutely. So, yeah, when I meet with clients, it's so common in the new year for them to come in and talk about the newest diet, the newest approach, the thing that they're eliminating from their diet come the new year.
Yep.
And this is just so common to hear. And the reason that we really have to take a bit of a closer look at diets is when we look at the research, we really want to see what does it mean for a diet to work. So I meet many clients who say, I did that diet for 3 months. I did keto. I did, Atkins way back when, and it lasted for 6 months and it worked until it didn't.
Yeah.
So it's the next holiday, it's your next kid's birthday, it's Easter, and all of a sudden they become derailed. And what we know then is if we look kind of at longer term research around diets, for a diet to work technically, it has to be sustainable for longer than 2 years.
Exactly.
And so that's really where it falls short, is people say, no, it does work. I'll be on keto until I lose my weight, and then I'll go back to my eating plan, and then they'll put the weight back on. And so that's kind of where we start to really look at this, what does it actually mean for a diet to work? And then we also have to start to consider the drawbacks of dieting. So there's many different things that we need to look at for kind of those drawbacks to dieting. So a few things we can look at is the risk of dieting is, for sure, restrictive diets can help with weight loss. But the challenge is once you kind of hit that low weight and then you start eating how you used to because it wasn't sustainable, the risk is weight regain plus some.
Yeah.
And when we look at research over time, we actually see that over a decade of people diet and weight cycling, their weight tends to go up. And one of the biggest risks of weight gain over time is actually dieting.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's always, I lost that 10 pounds that I wanted to lose. I just seem to gain 13 back. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then our body has to work harder the next time. So diets become more extreme over time. And then, as we age, for thinking about moms in this group, as we age, we hit perimenopause, menopause, we get hormonal shifts too.
Yeah.
So it's not even just that we have to work harder. Our body is not responding as well to diets. We're then getting our body shifting hormonally, where it's not going to be dropping the pounds as quickly as it did when we were 20 versus maybe when we're in our 40s or 50s.
Which is, I have to say, as someone who literally just turned 47, that is the biggest pain in the ass. Everything. I'm like, what? That's what I've always done. And why today or this month or this year, whatever, why is that not working? It's the same as I've always done and I've had results. Now it's not working. So I totally get that. The age and the hormones and stuff, it's a pain. It's frustrating.
It is, yeah. And then as we age as women, we also lose muscle mass, which burns calories at rest. So unless we're actively lifting heavy weight, even if we're running, we're doing a lot of cardio, we actually need to be keeping up on kind of lifting heavy weights to sustain our muscle mass. Because as we start to lose muscle mass, kind of hitting that perimenopause, menopause phase, we're actually not burning as many calories at rest because muscle mass burns calories at rest.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, we now have to weight lift more.
Yeah.
We now have to work on eating balanced meals. And then our body's just like, hey, you put me through the ringer for 10, 15 years of dieting. I've become more efficient. I know the famine's here. I'm going to just slow down and preserve life during this time.
Yep. Yeah, as a runner myself, whenever I notice the scale is just not moving or it's moving, but it's moving in the wrong direction, I'm like, look, man, we run. This is what we do. We don't lift weights, we run. That works for the weights work for everybody else except us because we run. It's such a hard thing to get past that, right? Like I know in my brain, I'm like, nope, you absolutely have to lift the weights. That's what keeps you able to keep running as you age, and that's what, you need that muscle mass. But I'm like, no, we just run. It's a
Right.
mental game, I find sometimes, right? The mental game of, as much as I hate lifting weights, I would much rather just run for hours on the treadmill. I know that that's what I need, but I still don't do it.
Yeah, and you're not alone. This is with so many different people. And it's just kind of that shift looking at, oh, for women as we're aging, that is just a component of a healthy, balanced lifestyle that we have to start to find a way to put in
Yeah.
into our routines. Even if it's not lifting heavy weights, it's just doing some sort of lifting just to keep our muscles from atrophying over time. It's just physiological changes that happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what about the people who have done the keto diet and claimed it worked for them? Do they have to remain on the diet forever or can they wean off of it?
Yeah, great question. So, if someone says they did keto and then it worked for them, again, I kind of go back to that question of for how long. So when someone's looking at that, they really have to see, and I find, like I've been a dietitian for 17 years, I find that typically people aren't saying things last longer than 2 years. So that's kind of that first question when someone says it worked. Well, was it long term? Because any sort of diet works. Short
Yeah.
term, restriction, keto, it will get the pounds off if that's the goal. And so, yeah, when we start to think about does keto work, sure, it can drop those pounds, but there's other things we have to be aware of. So I've met many clients where if we get their blood work, they share their blood work, their cholesterol levels are super high. Their fiber is low. I work with a lot of digestive patients. So if we're dropping our fiber, if we're really going keto, what's happening to our gut health, the microflora in our gut? So kind of that's what I assess as a dietitian is I really look at people comprehensively and say, is weight our only goal? Because weight does not equate to health.
Right.
And I think that's historically what a lot of people have looked at. Even healthcare providers, it might be like your body mass index or BMI is in this category or that category. But really, when we look at weight, it does not fully equate to health. So you could be at a high BMI, for example, you could be a football player and you're just muscle, right?
Yeah.
You could be normal body weight, you could be healthy or not. And kind of when I think about health, it's looking at things such as like, what's your blood pressure? What's your blood sugars? What's your cholesterol levels? What's your functional wellness? What's your relationship like with food?
Yeah.
Because if we think that something works, but then we get into this disordered eating realm, and then I put on my mom hat, step away from a dietitian, and think, what am I demonstrating to my children?
Yeah.
Because our kids see everything.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The keto diet has always been the one for me that just drives me crazy. I've had friends that are like, it's amazing. I've lost all this weight. I'm like, but then you gained it back. And they're like, that's because I stopped. I'm like, well, that's just not sustainable. Like that's why you stopped. And I'm like, any diet that tells you that you can't eat certain fruits and vegetables, I'm like, that's not a realistic diet because that's not healthy. Like, it tells you you can eat whatever as long as it's within like your ketones or whatever, but don't eat a banana because and she was trying to explain to me, she's like, you can have bacon. I'm like, okay. She's like, but you absolutely cannot have a banana. I'm like, hold on.
Right.
And she's like, you just have to rethink about food. I'm like, bacon versus banana. I'm like, I don't care where we've come with science. That just doesn't sit right with me. Right. And I mean, I understand it's the whole like each thing's fall into a category and you have to be within that category and stuff. But I don't know, any diet that tells me absolutely not to fruit and vegetables, I'm like, no, that doesn't seem like a good, because in my brain, fruit and vegetables are always okay.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And then I just think of like, imagine someone with irritable bowel syndrome. So I see a lot of gut health patients. That could be the biggest trigger for someone.
Yeah.
And when we're really trying to get more diverse microflora into a gut, which comes from fiber, fruits, and veggies, but you're just eating bacon and butter and steak, that has a huge impact on people's gut. And so that's kind of where we have to look at this a bit broader. And of course, people look at this individually to see if it works for them. But like keto isn't the be all end all for everyone. And
Oh,
then if they
absolutely
see
not. Yeah.
their doctor, 3 to 6 months later and their lipids are sky high, then, there is an impact there. So something always to consider.
Yeah. Yeah. When I tried it, so my friend that was on it, she was having great results, super successful, awesome results. And I am that person. I'm like I have IBS, I am pre-diabetic, and I have a nut allergy. I'm like, keto does not seem like it's ideal for me. And she's like, no, it's perfect for you. I'm like, really? Though I can't eat the fiber that I need to keep the IBS at bay. And she's like, but that's okay because the bacon and the so I tried it, like I gave it a good shot. I mean, my good shot, I'm going to say it was for a week because I could not move. I had no energy because I didn't know what to eat. So I just didn't. So I was like living basically off bacon and eggs, but I didn't want to eat that 3 times a day. So I ate it like once a day for like a whole week. And then she's like, don't you feel amazing? I'm like, look, I'm down 4 pounds, but if I stand up off the couch, I'm gonna pass out. I don't feel like that's a win. So yeah, it's just not for everybody, right? And she ended up having great success for the 6 months that she stayed on it. And then she's like, oh, but then Christmas hit and I just didn't want to. I'm like, well, if it was a successful diet, you would be able to maintain it through like Christmas and stuff, right? So,
and that's kind of where we need that flexibility of mindset with our eating, is we have to be able to ride the waves of life. And that's where we look more at kind of that sustainable diet. What sort of eating pattern can we sustain when we're camping in the summer, when Christmas hits? And where can we have that flexibility of mindset? Because what we know is kind of with classic dieters, they might have this all or nothing thinking, like, I'm on keto, just as you said with your friend, I'm on keto until Christmas hit, then I'm off of it. And that tends to actually send people into really big relapse with their eating.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Where they're derailed for months, if not even like a year goes by, and then they come see me and they're like, yeah, I need some help. And it's like, okay, can we find a way that's kind of more sustainable, that gives this flexibility of mindset around eating to ride those waves? And I especially think of, as us moms, we're always juggling all these balls. So like, how do we handle our kids being sick, stress with exams, family coming in? Like, we're always juggling. So I think we're kind of we have to have that flexibility to give, just as we would in parenting, of some days we're going to be we're going to be able to make our meals at home, going to be eating great. Other days we have to really just be okay with maybe we're getting some processed foods and we're throwing a bag salad on the table.
Yeah.
And then we know at another time we'll get back to cooking, that chili or whatever we're making that from scratch. But that flexibility and mindset really is the most important thing for eating kind of well-balanced meals.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of being moms, throwing it out there, we also don't eat. So I've also always heard to at least eat something.
Love that.
Oh, I have no problem eating.
I actually don't eat very much. So I've always heard that if you're at least eating something, even if it's not enough.
I don't have that problem either.
So I think that's actually something that I work with significantly, Cash, and I really appreciate you bringing this up, is kind of this like under eating throughout the day of us busy moms, or we're working. And often what I see in my practice then is a really big increase in food cravings in afternoon, supper time, or evening. The kids go to bed, we finally get a relax, we chill out, and then our body can actually start to sense our hunger cues.
Yeah. And that's when the chocolate comes out.
That's me.
Yeah.
Like minimal all day, and then come like, I want to say like 3:30, 4 o'clock. I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. Right?
Right. And after dinner, you hit that chocolate o'clock and you're like, oh, I gotta have my nightly chocolate.
Totally. And this is often when I see people that come see me and say, oh, I'm really wrestling with my cravings. And I really like to just kind of think about food cravings to say they're not wrong. They're just information and data. And what data are they speaking to? So again, if I look back at like the physiology of what our body needs, so our body primarily needs like glucose or sugar, like our brain, our muscles. And so if we're under feeding throughout the day, what do people typically crave? Celery?
Sugar.
right. Sugar, the savory
Salt.
carbs,
Yeah.
salts. I've never met someone who wants carrots for their evening craving. Like I have done this for 17 years. I've never seen this. And it's really your brain is kind of starved for glucose or sugar.
Yeah.
And that's when we are just so over hungry that it can tend to set us up for those food cravings. And for like a subset of the population, it can turn into binge eating or disordered eating of like, finally, my day's shut down. I'm able to be at rest. I feel a bit more calm. My nervous system is a bit more regulated. But then the hunger is just so intense that it's so hard to wrestle with that. And so
Yeah.
really what we're looking at, just as you mentioned, Cash, is like, are we eating throughout the day? They really prioritize, like, are we eating something throughout the day versus it being perfect? We really have to get off this perfect bandwagon of their eating, but like, are we eating every 3 to 5 hours throughout the day just to fuel our body? And when someone's eating regularly, we can then change what they're eating. But if they're not eating and they have this expectation of I need to be perfect, it really sets people to feel overwhelmed because it's like, well, what's the perfect breakfast? What's that perfect lunch? What's that perfect snack? When we seek perfection, it is overwhelming for all of us, myself too, as a dietitian.
Yeah.
So we got to sidestep that, give ourselves some grace. And just as you mentioned, the goal is to eat. And once we get people eating every 3 to 5 hours throughout the day, then we can really diversify what we're eating, adding on different foods. And for a neurodiverse population, this is really where we might have to put some structure in place, or if we're busy working, setting some alarms to really ensure that we're taking that time for ourselves.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Setting in that alarm to eat.
Yeah, for sure.
So diets seem to change consistently. 1 minute it's the Atkins diet, then the paleo, then Mediterranean, then keto, and the carnivore diet. Is the science wrong, or is it all just a financial gimmick? Like my family doctor actually recommended I do the Mediterranean diet.
Love it.
And that was my family doctor. So I never did. But I was like, okay, I tried reading up on it a little bit, and it's overwhelming, right?
Yeah, I was told the Atkins years ago by my family doctor. He's like, the Atkins diet. I'm not gonna lie, at the time I was 128 pounds, and he told me that was borderline obese because of my height. And so he's like, you need to do the Atkins diet. And that was terrible. I did not like that one at all. I don't know really what the Mediterranean one is. I don't know. It sounds more open than the Atkins, because Atkins is basically keto, right?
Right.
I don't know, Sophia, what the Mediterranean one was.
I don't know. I did a little bit of reading on it, and then I just got overwhelmed.
It sounds like fish and fruit. I don't know. Maybe I'm ignorant. It just sounds to me.
I think Mediterranean, and I'm like Greek, so like olives and feta cheese.
Yeah.
Pasta.
I mean, it sounds kind of delicious.
No, it's not that.
Oh, man, they've got to give them better names then.
Yeah, no, you got it, Sophia. So this is like, dieting is just such a huge industry, and that's where it's the newest diet. Like, people are making money off of this.
Right.
There's tons of holistic professionals. There's psychologists that are hired for when they're creating food ads. Have you ever walked into Costco and you notice that the bakery smell is like as soon as you walk in, but the bakery's at the back? So this is a huge industry. Yeah. And so they are looking for information to sell. Okay. And to be honest, like I've even seen in the newspaper, they'll show one published study that really says this is the new diet, the new thing to eat. And so people get excited. It's like, the newspaper posted it, or Instagram. Mm-hmm. But kind of when we're registered dietitians, we're looking at the comprehensive research. So the guidelines that are set forward, it's not based on one study. We really look at how our studies, like how do we grade studies? Is this, randomized control study, and is it repeatable? So one study or study in rats doesn't mean we extrapolate it to people. And so that's where you might see, try the paleo diet or the carnivore diet, because in rats, we saw this or that, or mice, I guess. But that's just not how we come up with guidelines. And to your point, Sophia, yes, the Mediterranean diet is kind of fruit, feta, fiber, all of those things. And probably if I was to be very general, the Mediterranean diet works for so many people, whether it's balancing blood sugars, cholesterol levels, high blood pressure. So I would say that is a very well-researched intervention, even for things like fatty liver. So it's not for everyone. Of course, meet with your healthcare providers. Nothing that I say here is, directed at one specific person, but talk to your family doctor, meet with a registered dietitian, where we can look at your blood work and understand your comprehensive health. But it really, all of this to say is it's a huge industry. And people are making a ton of money off of this and, supplements that really aren't needed for most people. So yeah.
You gotta love the Instagram influencers for this is all I eat in a day and I weigh this much. Bitch, please. We know you have no job, so you just work out all day and you are blessed with that great body, right? But they try and sell it to everybody and people fall for it every time.
You mentioned supplements. What are the main supplements that a woman should be taking?
So really what I focus on in kind of just a general guideline is vitamin D.
Okay, yeah.
So vitamin D is really important for bone health. So kids, our family members, ourselves, we should all be taking vitamin D. It's the vitamin that we get from the sun. If we're out in the sun, our arms, legs, body parts are exposed without sunscreen. And so many people, myself included, I'm sunscreening up, I'm wearing a hat. So we don't get vitamin D activated in our skin. For myself, even in the summer, because I'm not tanning, I'm covering myself up just, to take care of my skin health, cancer prevention. And then in the winter, being in Calgary here, we're not getting sun exposure. Even if you're skiing all day and you have like your little ski goggles and that's your sun exposure, we don't have enough sun exposure to activate vitamin D in our skin. So then we need to be taking that. Yeah. So Health Canada recommends around 600 IUs or international units per day. Other providers will say 1,000 to 2,000. And then again, when I transition this to women specifically, going through perimenopause, menopause, we're at risk of our bones starting to become kind of more brittle or going to that osteoporosis phase. So and it doesn't mean that happens for everyone, but we really need to protect our bones. So whether it's, again, lifting those weights, taking vitamin D, we should all be taking that. And I'd say that's kind of the only supplement that I'd say across the board that I'm recommending for people. Because then it's really specific on that individual, their blood work, their health conditions. So that's kind of that is the only blanket supplement that is really kind of safe across the board.
And even they don't test for vitamin D deficiency, but my doctor did test me for it. And I'm vitamin D deficient. And she said most people are, right? Everybody is vitamin D deficient because we're just not getting enough, right? She actually recommended I take 4,000 a day, right? So...
Totally. And so under a physician's supervision, and then when they have that blood work, that totally makes sense. As registered dietitians, we can't be prescribing that without intervention of like checking blood work, really working with family doctors.
Right.
But
so can you check blood work for vitamin D deficiency?
I cannot order it as a registered dietitian.
Because I know doctors can't either unless there's like an underlying issue, right?
Oh, really?
That's right.
So who orders it then?
So my doctor I don't want to throw anybody under a bus here. Nobody knows who my doctor is.
Right.
But she made up an underlying condition, right?
Okay.
For me to get that blood work done.
Okay. So just out of curiosity, so I had a hysterectomy when I was 22 years old. And so I was told the chances of you getting osteoporosis are super high because I had my hysterectomy so young. So they're like calcium, 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 but the doctor has never said vitamin D. So would that be an underlying health situation for them to test for vitamin D then? If you've for people that have had a hysterectomy?
I'm not sure.
I don't know all the reasons that they test. You'd really have to speak to your family physician.
I'm unsure too. I don't even know what my doctor said so I could get one.
Yeah. But, fair enough.
I know she said something.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
essentially, they just want everyone to supplement, and that's why they don't test. And
Yeah.
that's changed probably within the last, I don't know, 5 to 15 years. There was a time that we could test, but it was becoming very expensive to test. And really, Health Canada's guidelines is that everyone should be supplementing. So unless sometimes people have like a malabsorbing issue, like quite a complex gut issue, they won't be testing. So yeah, I'd say, Joanne, that'd be a good thing just to chat with your doctor about, or if other listeners are wondering, talk to your physician about it because they really know.
Can you just take the like vitamins, like the over-the-counter stuff? Like
you can get vitamin D. That's, the cheapest vitamin D out there. It works. It's a fat soluble vitamin. So again, I would not recommend taking kind of higher, or I can't recommend more than 1,000 IUs per day unless it's under medical supervision because it is fat soluble. So it's different than like vitamin C that you pee out. You take too much vitamin C, you pee it out, but vitamin D actually gets stored in our fat stores. And so then as you take it in, you don't want to be mega dosing because you're not going to pee it out. It's going to stay in your body in your fat store. So if you skip a day, for example, then your body will slowly use the vitamin D that is stored just in the fat in our body.
Oh, okay. So for people like myself that are like, hear that and go, oh no, vitamin D will make me fat. That's not what that means, right?
Oh, sorry. No.
Okay.
So there's 2 types of vitamins. Water-soluble vitamins, you consume it. If you take too much, you pee it out. So vitamin C, if you ever megadose vitamin C, your pee is probably fluorescent yellow. Different.
Okay, good to know. Yeah.
No water soluble, so dissolves in water. Fat soluble dissolves kind of in fat. So vitamin D is a fat source. So meaning physiologically, like in our body, it gets stored in our fat.
Okay.
That's so great question.
So is there, because I've heard that vitamin K2 is good to take with your vitamin D.
Yeah.
It is?
Do you know what? What I really...
Yeah. Right? Because it's better, I heard. So I don't know.
Okay, what I would say is that if people are taking vitamin D consistently, that's the most important thing. So vitamin like K2 is sometimes helpful, but not always necessary. So what I'd prioritize for people is if you're having vitamin D, pick what fits in your budget. And personally, I buy the cheapest that's out there. It works. And the consistency is key. So I find with a lot of nutrition, people really kind of can get stuck in the weeds of, is this better or not? I would not say that, K2 is a must, that everyone has to have it. For sure, if you want to have it, that's fine. But can you also get just vitamin D on its own that is effective? 100%.
Okay, so what about, because there's different types of vitamin D. There's vitamin D drops and there's pills. Which one is better? I take the drops hoping they're better.
Whatever helps you to be consistent.
Okay,
so
it's fine. Either one is fine. Okay.
Yeah, and I'd say that drops are great for adults too. So sometimes we buy them and it's like, oh, they're for kids, for breastfeeding moms.
Right.
Actually, for adults, they work really well because then you can just put the drops into your food, put on your family member's, meal for the day.
I have adult ones. I don't have baby ones.
Okay. They're all the same.
Yeah, okay.
So you're good. I think I have kids ones for myself.
So I understand the idea of calories in versus calories out, but I hear many people say they did that and it didn't work. To which I always say, which I guess is kind of mean, then you weren't actually in a calorie deficit. You ate more than you think you did. But lately, the blame seems to be put on this whole new thing of high cortisol levels, right? I hear that all over Instagram, all over everything. And as much as I would like to be like, that's why I'm not losing weight, knowing full well it was the bag of candy I ate, which is my issue. But can we blame those high cortisol levels, or do we need to pay more attention to our calories that we're consuming?
So I'd say that cortisol levels are one piece of the puzzle, but managing weight is actually much more complex than even just cortisol. So even if I think about, high cortisol levels, how does someone measure that? Is that cortisol levels measured in a lab? Is it, I felt stressed for 3 months? Like, how do we measure cortisol? So I kind of feel like cortisol's been thrown out there as like the newest claim to fame for, weight.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say when someone thinks about what is cortisol? Well, what is it? How do we assess if your cortisol is high? Could your physician check it? Sure, are they going to? I can't really say. They may not. So it's
Yeah.
not always something that's clinically relevant to check. But if we think about the factors that impact our weight, it is much more complex than calories in, calories out. And that's even how I like to start the conversation when I chat with someone about managing their weight or health. It's like, what are these other factors that impact us? So things that we can look at that impact our weight, for example, would be outside of food, outside of exercise, would be how's your sleep? So as moms, check in. How's your sleep? How you doing? How's
Oh
your
no, we have to sleep. Oops.
right? Is perimenopause, menopause kicking in and your sleep is now totally askew?
Yeah.
How's our stress levels? So that might tie in a bit to cortisol. How's our mental health? If I think about food cravings or binge eating, our mental health also plays a huge impact on that. Look at our genetics. So, there's this thought that everyone should live in a small or thin body. But really, if you look at your genetics in your family, you see that structurally we are all built different.
Yeah.
So kind of why is media put on this idea that we all have to be, in this certain body shape? We can look at other things such as adverse childhood experience or trauma in childhood. Other medical issues that we have, certain meds might cause our weight to go up, but they're absolutely necessary. And so really that's kind of where I like to start the conversation is if we're looking to manage our weight and wellness, it is much more than calories in, calories out. You say that you're eating in a quote unquote calorie deficit, but you're sleep deprived and your stress is sky high. What does that do to food cravings?
Right.
To your meal prep. How can you meal prep when you're sleep deprived and high stress? Maybe
Yeah.
financially you can't afford the really nutritious, healthy foods like salmon on the Mediterranean diet. For some people that they're like, I just budget friendly, that's just not an option. And so that's where I like to kind of pull back the layers when I work with people one-on-one to say, can we explore these other areas? And sometimes if we want to, work on our weight, you might actually want to do some check-ins on this other area. Like, how's your sleep? Do you have sleep apnea? Have you seen your doctor? How's your anxiety or depression? Are you meeting with someone to talk about that? And sometimes it's those other shifts that make more of a transition with our weight. And when we think about managing weight, sometimes the goal isn't weight loss. It's weight maintenance or preventing the pounds from coming on over time.
Right. So when you talk about like the childhood trauma and stuff, do you think that that affects, like if you were, say, severely malnourished as a child, would that still affect your weight or your eating habits or whatever as an adult?
I think it's hard to say, like for especially malnutrition, if there's trauma associated with that for sure. I see
Yeah.
people who've had food trauma, and it could even be just having parents who put them on diets at the age of 12.
Yeah.
That's food trauma.
Okay.
That's trauma kind of with the body, but there's the research kind of goes much deeper, and I can't speak to it because I'm not a psychologist, but when we look at kind of those adverse childhood experiences or trauma, it absolutely can have an impact on people in many different ways, impact their mental health.
Right.
And so all of that to say that it is just very complex, the system to manage our weight, but it's kind of just been broken down in the diet industry for us to be like, we're robots, right?
Yeah.
You put in 1,500 calories, you exercise 400 calories, therefore you should see 1 to 2 pounds weight loss deficit per week. But
Yeah.
we have to think at some point we have to plateau. No one loses 1 to 2 pounds a week until we're nothing. Like we have to have this place of acceptance that there is a weight plateau in life and our bodies shift over time.
Okay.
So I know I have food trauma. When I was younger, I'm going to tell you this story. When I was younger, my parents would make me sit at the table for hours. And I mean hours and hours and hours until I finished my food.
Yep. Eat what's on your plate, right?
Yeah, now, and they weren't nice about it either, right? I would be gagging and they'd be like, too bad, eat your food. Now as an adult, I have to finish my food. I will be so full and I'm like, no, I have to finish my food. I have to finish my food. I can't waste it. Right. And that I know came from when I was a child because I was forced to finish my food. So with my kids, I don't make them finish their food. They can stop when they're full. Right.
Yeah. Do you know what? I was the exact same way, but how I've taken it is now as an adult, every single meal, there is something left. Doesn't matter how little, I will never finish my entire plate.
Yeah, see,
ever. I will always leave something.
No, there's something in my head where I'm like, I have to finish my food.
Yeah, and if I am so hungry that I could finish it, I will get seconds just so I can leave something behind. And it's almost like here's
Right.
my fuck you to everybody. I'm like, I'm not eating it all. Fuck
It's your
you.
inner
But
rebel,
it is.
coming
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's also when we think about this idea of dieting, food rules within the home. Sophia, I so appreciate you mentioning that because I think what you shared, thank you for your vulnerability for sharing that. But I think it's an important message for parents to hear is like, what message is our dieting? Like, how is that having an impact on our kids?
It
Is
has.
this good for them? Are food rules within the house? Because I see those people when they're 50, 60 years old that they still
Yeah.
carry kind of
Yeah.
that trauma. And so I think
Yeah.
when we kind of broach this idea of like dieting for the new year, I'm always take it from this mindset of being a mom myself, a mom of two, working with parents, working with people of like our kids see everything. They
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
it, they hear it, they know the food rules in and out. So how do we protect our kids to really support a healthy relationship with body and food? Are we pulling out the scale and weighing ourselves once a week? At the table, are we talking about keto and telling our kids, you shouldn't be eating carbs, they're bad for your brain, for your body?
Yeah.
Kids hear that and they carry
Yeah.
it long
Yeah,
term.
they
So I
do.
think, as parents, we're really stewards of helping to direct our kids around like, how do we navigate this relationship with food and body to be really neutral and accepting that like bodies come in all shapes, food can be left on the plate. We can
Exactly.
really honor our hunger and fullness and
And
tune in.
Yeah.
kids have taste buds. They
Yeah.
have, right? Like you serve them something and they're like, "Oh, I don't like that." And you're like, "Too bad, eat it."
Right.
Right? And I'm like, "No, you don't like it. You don't have to eat it. You're full. Stop eating."
Yeah.
Right? And
Oh,
I love
yeah,
that.
100%.
there are people who are like, "No, you have to eat it and you have to eat it all." I totally, because that's how I was raised, and I'm like, I will never put my kids through that. Oh,
Like I
it
was a
was
very picky
terrible.
eater, right? So I am 100% the person that will look at something and be like, that looks icky. I don't like it. But I never tried it. And so I was like, that's gross. And so thankfully my husband was really good and he's introduced me to a lot of food. He's like, just give it a try. If you don't like it, you don't eat it. And which has been
Yeah,
huge. But
yeah,
so when we had our kids, I did not want them to follow me, but I knew that I wasn't able to change that in me. So I told my kids, and if they're listening, I'm so sorry. You're learning that this is not true. I told them, your taste buds change every 3 days. So if you don't like it today, that's fine. You don't have to eat it, but 3 days from now, maybe give it a try and you might like it. It might be your favorite food. So they totally did, but it was just I didn't want to force them to eat shit because they'd be like, but why are you not eating it? And how do you explain? Because I don't eat things that are icky, but you have to, right? So I didn't want to force them to do that, but I also didn't want them to get that from me. Like I feel like sometimes
Mhm.
that picky eater is a learned behavior. My dad is the shit that guy will not eat. Like when people say meat and potatoes, that's him. And if that meat has touched anything, looked at anything different, like it's ridiculous. And I did not want them to get that. So I just told them, your taste buds change every 3 days. But
That's
I never
fair.
forced them to try anything, right? Or like,
Yeah,
not that I didn't force it. I'm like, just give it one bite. If you don't like it, you don't like it.
yeah,
Try it
yeah.
again in 3 days. And they
absolutely.
did. And they eat great. They both eat way more than I will. They'll be like, Mom, just try it. And I'm like, ew, it looks gross. So it worked out great, but
Oh, totally. And when I think so, Sophia, you're kind of mentioning like I really want, I believe it was you that said my kids and people to understand when they feel full. I love that approach. So I'm also
Yeah,
this intuitive eating counselor. And
yeah,
really what that's looking at is really honoring our body from like a very holistic approach. So,
yeah,
around nutrition, food, hunger, fullness. And
yeah,
that's really what we want to support in our children is like
yeah,
raising intuitive eaters. So
yeah.
we're kids, and we do this with structure too. So it's not just like finish eating and then in 15 minutes you can eat again and eat again. Like we do this
Right.
quite strategically, but like we want to teach our kids to understand the sensations of hunger, to understand the sensations of fullness, and really to honor that at the end of the
Yeah,
meal And then as parents, our role in what's called this parent-child relationship is to put the structure and time of day that they eat. So then it doesn't become this free-for-all. Some parents are like, well, then they're going to say they're hungry again in 15 minutes. They want the goldfish crackers, So
Right.
as parents, we're kind of really in control of teaching our kids, especially for those younger kids, that there's times of day that we eat. And we're kind of eat at set times. So if you say you're full, but then you want to eat 15 minutes later, it's not the case, kiddo. You're going to have to wait an hour and a half. And so we just give kids that opportunity to eat, about every 2 to 3, maybe 3 hours or so, depending on their age.
Yeah.
So then they have that opportunity, but we do want them to feel that hunger in between meals, not starving, but like to have that sensation of, I have a little bit of hunger, to help them then at the next meal, and things like juice or too much pop or soda kind of take that away, getting that constant like sugar in a diet.
Yep.
So, but I really love that idea of how can we teach our children to be intuitive eaters?
Right.
Because dieting really strips that out of us as adults, that bodily sensation of understanding hunger, fullness. And that's
supporting them, right?
Oh,
so when they say they're full, they're full. You leave it at that. You don't, no, you have to eat more. You have to eat more. You have to finish your food, 10 more bites. Like, no, if they're full, they're full. That's right. And I really think that parents need to think about that, right? And just let the kids take the lead sometimes, right? Because my parents didn't. So, and now I'm full and I'm still eating. So
Right.
I blame them. But yeah, just
100%.
right, letting them, they have opinions and they have feelings and they have fullness and they have.
And we can bring our kids into the picture with eating,
Yeah.
So like when we have those kids who are maybe selective in their eating, it's how can we get our kids kind of bought into this process of eating? So is it like getting them involved with food prep? Are we taking our kids to the grocery store maybe to pick out a new fruit or veggie? As our kids get older, can we put some of the onus on kids to start to prepare a meal? And we can start, my kids are 7 and 9. My son, who's 9, loves to cook eggs. So it's like, when we have capacity, this is a big thing for parents. So it might be a Saturday morning. If he wants to cook scrambled eggs, let him.
Yeah.
If he wants to cook eggs for all of us and, the yolks get smashed, but he's cooking, let them be involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then as we get kids involved and have that ownership, then we get more buy-in. Like my son hated mushrooms. And then all of a sudden he started to put mushrooms when he made our own pizzas at home, pepperoni mushrooms, and he wanted mushrooms. Like I never could have forced my kid to eat mushrooms, but he's like, Mom, can I have mushrooms? And I was like, you have to have the deadpan face. I'm like, sure, hun. But inside, I'm like wanting to text my husband who's across the table to say, wanting mushrooms on it.
Right?
Like, you wouldn't touch them in any other dish. And it took him like 9 years to eat mushrooms.
Yeah.
And so as parents, we really have to be it in the long run with our kids of like, let's get them bought in, bring them in. And this is tough as parents to get our kids to eat balanced meals. So you have to look at those really small wins.
Yeah.
And sometimes I really just channel the thought of, kiddo, you don't have to eat this meal, but I will always have something at the meal that you will eat.
Yeah.
So you won't starve. You will always have a safe food.
Yep.
But kids have that autonomy to also choose not to skip a meal.
Yeah. And that's hard as and that's hard, right? As a mom, when you've made food and you're like, okay, here's your like lunch, let's say, and they're like, well, I'm not hungry. It's hard because as a mom, we're like, but we feel like you need to eat because you're supposed to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but you're saying you're not hungry. So is that okay? Like there's that guilt, right?
Later.
Yeah,
they can
exactly.
Eat lunch later, and then they can eat dinner later too, right? Like it doesn't have to be at 11:30, 12 o'clock. You have to eat your lunch right now, right?
Yeah, I think it's just that initial guilt that like, oh no, I'm not giving my kid lunch at this time. But it's like, it's fine. Just I mean, we don't want to eat at the same time all the time.
No.
So we have to remember that sometimes their body clock is not wants the same thing either. So
totally. And I
that's
always encourage parents to like have your kids still sit at the table without electronic devices on. Because a family meal is more than just nourishment. It's connecting, it's sharing memories, it's debriefing about the day. And even from my own family, what I'll notice is like if one of my kids was allowed to leave the table, the next wants to get out of there right away. So
Oh,
we're into play.
100%. Yeah.
So we kind of have this rule of like, no, you guys can't leave yet. Set the timer for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You don't have to eat, but part of eating and building kind of the stronger family system is the relationships. You hang out here.
Exactly. It was meal time, like dinner time for our family was very much a social thing. So whether you wanted to eat or not, you still stayed at the table till we were all done because we were chatting and we were having a good time. And we just, whatever they ate, whatever they didn't eat, whatever. And we were just chatting. So oftentimes we were like, whoa, I guess we've been here for way so long. We should probably clean up. But a lot of times it was more just the social part of the dinner, right? That's when they opened up about their day. That's when we talked about, whatever's bothering them. And now, like, my kids are grown now, so one is married and obviously not living at home anymore. And I miss that. I miss that social. Thankfully, I have my youngest still at home, and I'm like, you will never leave. I am holding on to you. But it's that social thing, right? Like, it's not just dinner time, it's our time to connect. So, and that's a huge thing. And before you know it, if you're just busy chatting and connecting and having a good time, they'll pick away at their vegetables. You don't have to tell them to eat them. They'll just eat them while we're chatting. So that connecting time is just as important.
And if we can get the stress levels to calm down, so that's where we want like food to be really a neutral place for kids, for families. Sophia, when you shared kind of like that intense environment of like you have to finish your plate, that really increases people's stress levels. And typically when stressors increase, we either, like as an adult, when I'm stressed, do we either overeat or we undereat? So sometimes we emotionally have to regulate in those family meals. If we can make it really a place of neutrality around food, of connecting, it can then, as you said, kids will start to pick and eat. And sometimes it's just that decompression of us eating together. If we can make it a safe place.
Yeah.
Where then their nervous system can start to calm down. A big thing is electronics off.
Yeah.
So then the kids can start to focus on food. Like I know my kids, they would be totally focused on TV if we had it on. Like they probably would not eat.
Yeah.
For the whole day, I feel.
Right? Yeah.
Until 8 p.m. at bedtime.
We always had a no electronics at the dinner table. So the no TV. In fact, for the longest time, we didn't have a TV on the main floor where the like dinner table was. So there was no option. And so there was nothing. And so it was just all about the eating because as soon as you put that TV, and even now, like, so my youngest is 25. And if I'm like, I want to catch up on that show we're watching and I put it on, he's like, whoa, mom, what's going on? You put the TV on. And I'm like, it's a treat. But as long as you can keep that shit away from the table, it just changes the whole experience.
And I just think it's so pervasive that either, as adults, we're working through lunch or we're checking our phones, so I just want to say, like, this is normal for so many of us that we have social media or distractions, but it can be that baby step, like if we're thinking just general first steps with family nutrition. Can we minimize TV? Can we turn it off? Once a week, we have no TV for supper. So again, it's not all or nothing that it has to be off for families where it's like, whoa, this is a lot to take in. We couldn't do this. It's hard to make those baby steps of like, could it be maybe like Friday night where you substitute even TV for like, let's eat? And could we do something like a game, like connecting?
Exactly.
And just kind of building that family system around like, this is a time that we connect, we emotionally regulate, we can share about the day. As you said, food is just so much more than just nutrients and calories. It's way beyond that.
Exactly.
I know you mentioned this briefly before, but what is an intuitive eating approach?
Absolutely. So when we think about an intuitive eating approach, we're really starting to look at understanding what our body needs, looking inwardly. So that's looking at our hunger cues, our fullness cues. We start to look at even just kind of rejecting kind of that diet mentality of it's just around calories, it's around our body being a certain size. And we're really looking to restore kind of our physical health and kind of our mental health and relationship around food. And so it's really turning inwardly. So a lot of people will say, it's about understanding when that hunger comes in, when we're full at a meal. It also expands outside of food for exercise to be something that is joyful movement. So it's not we're exercising to burn 400 calories per day. It's like I'm finding movement within my body. So some people call that exercise still. That movement that kind of fuels my soul. So thinking about kind of the new year coming up, many people think, well, I got to hit the gym to be healthy. I got to go on the treadmill or an elliptical. I'd really encourage like, well, what feels physically good in your body? Is it maybe going for a walk with a friend? Is it trying? I had a client who said, I love Zumba. I found a new passion, Zumba. I'd never done that. And so really we're looking to step away as intuitive eating counselors to help people just kind of regain their body awareness, have more body respect. And I'd say that like kind of classically kids, as we've discussed, are naturally intuitive eaters. Just think of like a breastfeeding baby. They know what they want when they want, and they have that flexibility of, I'm going to cluster feed for 8 hours in the day, and then I'm going to go 6 hours without eating. So it's kind of having that mentality of like our intake and food can change throughout the day. You know, same with other bodily functions like sleep or urination. Like these things all change. They're never the same day in and day out. So why do we expect that food has to be 400 calories at a meal, 20 grams of protein when our body changes in all other physiological ways? So so that's as an intuitive eating counselor and intuitive eating, it's really stepping away from it's just diets, it's numbers, and tuning into understanding kind of what our body is telling us. Like some meals we have to eat more because we're hungry. Maybe Joanne, like you just ran 10K. Of course you need to eat more, right?
Yeah.
Like we need to fuel our body and have this flexibility, or we're currently in the holiday season, you know, are we going to eat a bit more because that food tasted good? Can we honor that like food tastes good? And it's okay to want to eat a bit more when we're at, you know, our friend's house having that festive dinner. So it's really more of a flexibility of mindset. And really the big thing that it helps with is the pitfall of dieting and weight cycling. As I'd earlier mentioned, that's what tends to actually cause people to gain weight over time. So intuitive eating is not a weight loss program. Typically, it's a weight neutral, so kind of weight maintenance. Some people do lose weight on it. Some people gain weight. You know, if they've been underfed for a period of time, maybe a bit of disordered eating, they might have to put on weight. But it's really honoring our body, what it needs, and kind of turning inward to the wisdom of our body.
Interesting.
How can we build a healthy relationship with food?
The big thing I would look at is what is sustainable long term. So as Cash kind of mentioned, you know, sometimes it's that under eating throughout the day, we're busy. And then for many, you didn't say it's Cash, but many people, it's like, then we're 4 p.m. onwards, we're eating, we're packing it in, 9 p.m. the kids are down, we turn on Netflix and it's like, oh, I'll just have that bag of chips.
Snack time.
Right? So I'd say when we think about kind of that having that healthy relationship with food, I would say, first of all, it's seeing, can we put away the kind of like restricting in eating? So restrictive eating, calorie counting. Can we eat regularly throughout the day to manage our blood sugars, to manage fullness, to manage our mental health or anxiety? You know, it's kind of those foundational pieces that's building a house structurally. My basement is not the exciting part of my house. It's the structure. So we want that balanced relationship with food. We want to build that structure and routine, even of like regular eating. When we then start to think of how do we have a healthy relationship with food, it's having that flexibility to be like, yes, I'm going to plan to cook, you know, as much as I have capacity, I'm going to cook those homemade meals. I'm going to choose high fiber dishes. I'll get some more omega-3s. But I'd say the crux here is we have to be able to ride the waves in life. So I kind of think of myself as a dietitian and a mom as surfing the waves. So we have our surfboard. Our kids are going to be doing great in school. Work isn't going to be stressful. We can meal plan. We can order groceries. We've meal planned for a week and we're doing great. And then the flu hits and work is stressful and things become derailed. We want to give ourselves that grace to say, you know what? It is okay to pre-order that lasagna, to have that on my table. And I'm going to still aim for half a plate of veggies, but maybe it's bagged salads. Maybe I buy like a veggie tray that's cut up. So it's really a flexibility of mindset to say, I can ride these waves. And when I have the capacity and bandwidth, I'll sink in my time to do that meal prep, to order the healthy foods. And then when I don't, I'm going to be A-okay with giving myself grace. And as Cash had said, the goal is to eat. Sometimes just as busy moms, it's like, if our kids or families need breakfast for supper, do it. your kids
Yeah.
got fed. And we really have to give ourselves that high five and be like, our kids got fed on
Right?
time. They're emotionally regulated and I'm emotionally
Yeah.
regulated. So that's kind of where I'd say that's that healthy eating is the flexibility. Because the opposite of that is all or nothing thinking, which is dieting. And that typically is like people are successful, quote unquote, for like months on end until they crash and burn and it's not successful. And
Yeah.
that typically sets people back longer term than having a flexibility of mindset to be able to roll with the punches of motherhood.
Right. So is there any food that you will say 100% people should not ever eat?
No, I wouldn't say that there's a food. And I think this part comes into that flexibility. We all need to have our favorite foods.
Yeah.
And what we know is that for food cravings, typically when people restrict their favorite foods, it intensifies the food craving.
Yes.
So I am not a believer that any food is off limits.
Even candy.
Even bacon, like our favorite foods we have to eat. But it's being like aware of the frequency.
Right.
How often are we mindfully eating?
Yeah.
So like if we're eating this, are we binge eating and we're like watching Netflix and we have no clue that we just crushed half a Costco bag of chips? Or are we like choosing to eat these foods like where it's very intentional? Like I'm sitting down and I'm going to eat this meal, my favorite food, but I've been nourished throughout the day. So I'm not starved. I'm emotionally regulated. I'm kind of, my sleep's managed and I'm going to eat this food and I'm really going to enjoy it and get pleasure out of it. So I'd actually say the opposite is we don't want to restrict any foods because typically it comes to get us with food cravings. And then that can lead to overeating or a binge where it's like, instead of eating 2 strips of bacon, I could easily crush the pack of bacon because I've not had it in 6 months.
Right. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing's off limits. If anything, it's really being aware of like how often and eating it. Again, I think the big thing is ensure that you eat enough throughout the day so that once you have your favorite food, you can engage in a mindful eating practice. So like slow down and taste the food. Maybe take 5 minutes to enjoy your favorite food. No electronics on. You taste like the flavor of it, the crunch, the smell, you look at it. That mindless eating is really where we can overeat. But if we turn it into a mindful eating practice, it totally shifts things. And then we get more pleasure out of it. And we feel so much more satisfied because we're unhooked from the guilt and shame of, I should never eat cookies. I should never eat gummies or chips. That shame and guilt hook really just drives our inner rebel to want to eat more. It's that like little child in us who's like, don't tell me I can't eat that food. I'm going to crush the whole bag of chips.
Yep.
So everything is okay in moderation then.
Yeah. And if sometimes people need support with this because this can be a very scary concept. Yeah. I met some people where they're like, I'm not okay with you saying that I could eat chips. So there's some people where maybe it's they have a bit more disordered eating where this feels uncomfortable. So I think that's when people need a bit more help and support because this doesn't resonate with all people across the board. Yeah. But and that's where people can meet one-on-one with a dietitian to say, well, how do I include these foods in my life that still keeps me healthy? If we look at kind of, our blood work, how does it keep me healthy? But how do I improve that relationship with food, but still that flexibility and mindset, but still not go overboard on a bender with it? Yeah. People can meet with registered dietitians where you get that like 45 minutes just to really go into depth with this information. Yeah. So there's lots of resources out there and available so that people don't have to feel stuck. They're like, but how do I figure out, Sophia, you mentioned Mediterranean diet, other diets, or how do I eat for managing pre-diabetes? Meet with a nutrition expert who can really dig into that and give you the time of day when our family docs just are so busy in their practice and managing so many different things.
Yeah.
So what would you say could be the number one thing people can do to create a better eating habit?
So if people have capacity and bandwidth, I'd say planning meals. So it's kind of that consistent eating, but then meal planning. And for some people, we're just looking at maybe we start out with planning suppers once or twice a week. So it kind of just depends where someone's coming from. I work with people across the spectrum of eating habits. So some people are like eating really well balanced, planning meals. We could tweak it from there. But like sometimes it's just looking at what's our bandwidth. Could we plan like 2 suppers a week? Could we plan 2 lunches a week? versus just grab and go food, fast food, ordering in. So it kind of depends where people are across the spectrum. If someone's like, I really have that nailed down, that's so simple, then we would start to look at like balanced meals. So are we getting like half a plate of veggies at a meal, quarter plate protein, quarter plate grains? We could look at really high fiber whole grains. So again, this is kind of along that spectrum. But if we're thinking around like blood sugars, gut health, are we having like white bread, white pasta? Could we start to shift that more to like a high fiber bread, a whole wheat pasta, for example? So there's kind of many different directions we could go, and that's kind of where I tailor it to the person I'm working with individually. But I'd say it's kind of setting a small, very specific goal. And again, it's looking at someone's bandwidth. So one client could come in and say, I'm completely depressed. I don't have a ton of money to spend on food. That's a very different goal that I'd set with someone versus someone who's like, I've got this nailed down. Just help me to tweak this for my IBS. Where can I go from here? I'm like, got it.
Do you help with, so I make homemade dinner like every night. I'm always like, I don't know what to cook. I don't know what's healthy. Like I have the basics idea, but do you help with like, this is the recipe you should make, or this is the food you should make? Does that make sense? We're going to have spaghetti
Meal
because,
plan.
Yeah.
Is
that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I
All right.
do
I'm
meal
like,
plans. Yeah.
Okay. But are you able to guide them to, because everyone tells me, look on Pinterest. That is overwhelming. And I'm like,
totally.
I don't know what I'm looking for. Is there like a way to put in, I don't eat this, and this kind of thing? Do you know what I mean? Like that's where I find a lot of people get stuck is I don't know what to cook. I have the
Right.
time. I have the money to buy this stuff. I don't know what it is that I'm supposed to cook.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't personally do meal plans. And the reason is if I did meal plans, then cookbooks would work for everyone. So I could tell you to do like a paneer tofu dish that I like, and you could say, I'm not going to touch that. But I do give people the specific swaps in their current recipes. So for
Okay.
example, someone's like, yes, I have pre-diabetes. What should I be eating? I can give them very specific interventions to say, you may not have to overhaul your diet. Maybe it's portions we're looking at. Maybe it's the grains that we're looking at. So I'll give people very specific suggestions to say, well, if you're cooking your lasagna and you're using white noodles and you're struggling with, a bit of dysregulated blood sugars, how can we swap that out? But it has to also work for your family.
Yeah.
So I'm very kind of particular with like, if I gave someone a meal plan, they might say, well, I'm not going to eat it. My husband has celiac disease and my child is like type 1 diabetes. And you're like,
What would you swap that out with?
for the lasagna example?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so curious.
Yeah. So we'll say a scenario known as elevated blood sugars or digestive health, right? I would do a fiber bump. So if we're using white pasta noodles,
Yeah.
could you do whole wheat pasta noodles?
Okay.
So it has a big impact on our blood sugars. It has a big impact on our digestive health.
Mhm.
If it's a meat lasagna, we might say, well, could you add in some veggies to it? If it's meat and you're using ground beef as an example, one of my favorite swaps to get people to have a bit more fiber is even reduce the amount of ground beef you're using and rinse out a can of lentils, canned lentils, and mix that in. And I find that because it's only like maybe a third of the meat, people don't taste it because you still have the meat there. So you still have the texture, you still have the taste, but you get this great fiber boost. Or if you make a pasta sauce, like maybe even you use jarred pasta sauce, well, do you ever saute up vegetables first? So I've done this with my family. So I'll do onions, shredded zucchini, grated carrots. I cook it all up, add in a bit of garlic. I might use some canned spaghetti sauce. Then I use an immersion hand blender to blend it up.
Yeah.
So that's where I make those very specific recommendations to say, well, let's get your fiber up. And some people might not like that. And so we really start to say, well, what is the swap that you could do? You don't have to do all the swaps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or then do we look at your portion size? What are you eating just lasagna for supper? Could you put some veggies on the side? Could we add in some cottage cheese to bump up the protein? Like those would be an example of swaps. But then I have my clients choose because like what I think is a good swap, they may not think would work for them. So I'd say like, here's kind of an idea of it, like 5 things you could try. What resonates for you? What fits in your budget? And what do you think would actually taste good for you and your family? So this has to work for the people you're cooking for.
Do you blend the lentils?
I don't. So no, if I'm doing kind of like that lentil swap, like if we'll say it's shepherd's pie or like tacos, and I'm cooking up my ground beef. It might be a third of the ground beef, like I wouldn't use, but then I would put in the lentils. So rinse the lentils, put it in, and they're just brown little lentils. And so full disclosure, my family doesn't love beans and lentils at the best of times. But my kids, who are 7 and 9, they'll look at that and they're like, they don't notice it.
Okay.
So it's kind of one of those things, or there's different ways that we can get people to try something. Like I made some really great like banana bean brownies. And I've even got my kids to help me make it. And I've tried it. My husband is not a dietitian. And he's like, these are good. And they're totally pureed. And so sometimes we have to think outside of the box. And I can see your faces here. The listeners can't. I've seen a few twinges here. But I fully believe that food has to taste good.
Yeah.
And so when I make these recommendations, it's because I've tried it, and I have family too. And so I say, just try one thing. We don't have to change the whole world here. Maybe it's like you add in a bit of ricotta, some cottage cheese to get a protein boost. Maybe you puree your veggies into your sauce and use your hand immersion blender. So we want those small wins.
Yeah, I used to do that with pasta sauce. I could not get my youngest to eat vegetables whatsoever. And so I got this great idea that I'm just going to puree some spinach and add it into our pasta sauce. He's not going to know. Well, the whole batch turned out green. And he's like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, dude, this is Hulk sauce. And he's like the Incredible Hulk. I'm like, absolutely. And he inhaled it and he's like, it's so good. I'm going to be big and strong like the Hulk. I'm like, yes, you are. And then I used to do the same with his mashed potatoes. I would put food coloring in them and give him like different colored mashed potatoes. And he's like, I do not like mashed potatoes, but I like the red blob that we had with dinner. He's like, what was it? I'm like, it's just red blob. Like, I like red blob. And so I just use it to make things change color or give him different
creative,
right? Like he didn't eat peas forever. And so I'm like, hey, do you want some soccer balls with dinner? He's like, what are soccer balls? I'm like the little green balls. They're just soccer balls. He's like, oh yeah, I like those. And then he would eat magic trees, which is broccoli. It was totally fine. You just had to change the color, change the name, and he was totally fine.
And like food play and that sort of like lightheartedness with kids can be so great for like our younger kids.
Yeah.
It's really taking away that fear. And then if we can get our kids to get involved with like maybe they're defrosting the soccer balls, if you buy frozen peas and get them involved, that is such a great lighthearted way to really get our kids kind of bought in to eating in a non-stress environment.
Exactly. And the more they cook, they like the stuff they've cooked, right? So they're more willing to eat it if they've cooked it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Mom's broccoli is gross, but my broccoli is so good. But whatever, as long as you eat it.
Totally. And that's kind of the beauty of it, right? Can we get our kids involved in some small capacity, get them to make a smoothie, get them, in making some muffins for their lunches for their week, any little wins, fried eggs on a Saturday morning, really buys them in and decreases that stress around food and gives them some autonomy.
Yeah. And you can hide vegetables in muffins. So easy.
Yeah, or get them involved. I've had my kids make green muffins with some spinach and banana in it, but I wanted them to be involved so that it wasn't a food that's feared.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's the number one mistake people tend to make when trying to change their habits?
The biggest mistake is doing too much. So that is really it, where I find people want to take on the whole world with changing their food and they crash and burn in 3 months.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start at the gym come January 1st. I'm going to revolutionize how I eat and my kids are going to love it. My spouse is going to be engaged and be neutral around food. People crash and burn.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the biggest thing is that we know around behavior change and how people work is if we take on too much, it's just not sustainable. So really, I'm a huge believer in like micro goals. And that's how people build on it. So we can stack on goals, but it feels a little devastating when we set out to make a huge revolutionary change. And then we're just like, I actually didn't have the bandwidth for that. I couldn't carry this on because I actually work in a day and I'm actually a mom and I have all these responsibilities.
Yep.
So I'd say kind of like quick answer is like, we really want to set like just 1 to 3 small goals because it builds our confidence in being able to do more. And we can always build on to that.
Yeah, that's a good point. As soon as you say, I'm going to change my entire diet, you don't make it long. At least I don't. If I make it a week, I'm like, look at me, I ate all good that week. Weekend comes and guess what?
Oh, totally. And then our
Yeah,
kids hate it, we're
yeah,
making food that they're like, I've never eaten this, mom. So we always put
yeah,
that in the context of being moms of like, how do we nourish our family? So we're not cooking 2 meals. Like, that's just not sustainable.
yeah. So do you work specifically with people with health issues such as like IBS, pre-diabetic? Do you work with clients like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my main focus is working with families. So family nutrition, managing food cravings, helping people to kind of get off of like the dieting bandwagon, working on intuitive eating, a lot of digestive disorders. So if it's IBS or diverticulitis, I see a lot of digestive disorders as well. But kind of under that, like I see many people with like multiple health conditions where they're like, I have celiac disease and type 1 diabetes and high blood pressure. How do I eat? So I kind of love like those complexities of like, yeah, how do you blend together 3 to 4 health diagnoses that if you actually Googled all of it on your own, you'd be like, but I need to eat this for IBS, but then I need to
Yep.
eat this to manage my sugars. And like, I need a high fiber diet for blood sugars, but then that really flares up my IBS. So I love kind of helping people sort through the weeds of like, for your health conditions, how do we kind of blend this all together to prioritize what's most important? How to cut through all of the information that's out there to make really concrete, specific like goals that work for someone's family or just for their life, like for busy people. We got to make this, really simple to implement and we can build on that.
Yeah. Do you find that you work with a lot more, say, like neurodivergent people? Because neurodivergents tend to have just stomach issues. That just seems to be something that goes along with it. Not necessarily IBS, but like just, well, actually, it probably is more IBS. It's just not called that, I guess, right? Like you get it's just what I've been told is it's just the neurodivergent stomach issues. So do you find you work with a lot more neurodivergents versus neurotypical?
I wouldn't say it's one way or the other, because I
Okay.
kind of see like a combination, like all kind of walks of life come through
Yeah.
when I meet with them. But I definitely see people who have neurodivergence, whether it's, ADHD, maybe they have autism, a whole variety of things. And then sometimes it's just not even diagnosed, right? Like if it's just
Yeah.
even mental health, like anxiety, depression, overwhelm, overstimulation. But then there are people who have like, picky eating concerns. Maybe it's certain food fears that they have that kind of stem from childhood. Then sometimes that goes into the disordered eating realm as well, where I see lots of folks with eating disorders, disordered eating. So yeah, many
Yeah.
people come across my practice. There's kind of not one grouping of people, but I
Yeah.
really am passionate about helping those people who just kind of feel overwhelmed by handling all of the information, all the diagnoses, or really kind of those overwhelmed parents or busy people who are like, I don't know how to make this work in my crazy busy life, but I have 3 health conditions.
Right.
Give me the answers now. What are those 3 swaps I need to get through this week?
Yeah.
We hammer it out so then they know, yeah, this is what you can do and it's going to make an impact on your health.
Nice.
So I know you just mentioned how you work with some people with eating disorders, but I had a question. How do you feel about intermittent fasting with meal planning?
So I always pose the question to my clients, if someone is doing intermittent fasting, do they notice an impact on their food cravings later in the day? Because if I think about classic binge eating behavior is a restriction earlier in the day of the amount of food that we're eating, which can then kind of show up as a binge. So it's always on my mind when I'm meeting with clients is to say, like, I kind of look at them from the big picture and I ask questions. So is this working for you? And then I dig deeper. What's your relationship with food? What's your relationship with body? If someone is at risk of binge eating, whether it's diagnosed or not, but they have like, oh yeah, I have these really strong food cravings. That's where I kind of just ask those questions and kind of raise awareness around it.
Yeah.
So I really operate from like asking questions if it works for a person, but it has to be in the context of their health. I have some people who do intermittent fasting, they're managing cholesterol or diabetes, and their blood sugars are sky high. And so I do an education. I always let people choose how they want to eat, but I might educate them. If you have type 2 diabetes, and your sugars are high and you just eat 2 big meals a day, absolutely it's going to be hard for your body to bring your sugars back down into a normal range.
Yeah.
So I kind of look at people from that big picture of what are your health concerns that you're managing? I'm screening for disordered eating in my mind. I'm looking for that. And then do they feel that this will work long term? So that's kind of how I approach it, is really looking at many different variables with a person. And then I help them understand, like, okay, this is working for you. It's not impacting your health. Tell me more. Watch out for like the red flags of binge eating or just food cravings kind of flaring up. And we can go from there. So it's a bit of that general answer, but I really have to look at the individual that's in front of me, what changes they want to make, and then really what their health conditions are that they're managing. You know, our IBS folks, if you're doing intermittent fasting, that might really be flaring up your IBS. So, you know, that's where I kind of have to look at it from a bit more of a complex picture of saying, like, what health issues are you wanting help with? And does this eating style typically help you or maybe worsen your health conditions that you're trying to manage?
Right.
Okay. How long do you typically work with clients?
So in a session, it's about 50 minutes, like for a one-time session. I've followed people for years, though.
Okay.
So it really depends on the individual. Some people come in and say, I'm newly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Teach me what to eat. That might be 1 or 2 sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of my longer term patients tend to be patients with or clients with eating disorders, digestive health issues. That's kind of huge. And then if they're working on intuitive eating, if this is a new way for them to understand that their relationship with food and body, that's longer term work. So I'd say those are the folks. I've seen some clients, you know, for years, where it's like my IBS or diverticulitis is well managed, and then something changes, and then they're coming back to me, might have a year or 2 break, coming back to me and saying, I need a check-in. I don't know what's going on. Can you give me some help? So it's kind of really individual, and I have my clients kind of just set, and we set up at the end of an appointment, what do you need next? You know, do you need to come back? Some do. Some people are good just with 1 session, but typically the ones that are in my practice are around a bit longer because they're really wanting to make that sustainable long-term change.
Yeah, I feel like it would be more of like, and I know for me personally, it would be more of like a one-time thing would not be useful because I'd be like, oh yeah, I got it. And then I'd be later, I'm like, why is it not working? But it's because I'm not following it properly. So you almost need someone to come in and be like, you're not doing it. You need to go back to this. So almost like I would need constant monitoring, if that makes sense.
Sure. Some people really love that accountability, right? They're
Yeah.
like, I just know that I'm going to see you in 2 months. That really helps. Or in, you know, 3 weeks time. I really like that because then it's someone I know I can go to with questions and not feeling stuck. I
Yeah.
have that support. So each person is so different, but typically for these longer term health issues I'm working with people on, they want that support. And that's where I really see change, is where they can ask the questions, they can check in, they get supportive, they feel like they can sustain the change, and then eventually they're able to go on their own.
Yeah. Do you have like a age of clients that you typically like work with? Is it usually younger moms or older moms or?
I don't have a specific age, no. So I'll see anyone from kind of like children, family nutrition. I don't kind of work with young babies. Maybe the age cutoff would be like 5 years old and up.
Yeah.
But typically I find it's probably people ages about like 40 to 60. It's kind of that we're healthy, but things are shifting. We're hitting that middle age, and our IBS just came on, or diverticulitis, or type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to work on my relationship with food because I have kids and they're seeing what's happening. So that's kind of the age group that I predominantly see is, you know, things start to shift in that age where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I really need some support to figure this out.
Right. When we're 20, we can eat whatever we want and nothing changes. And then 30, it's not so bad. And you hit 40 and you're like, what the hell? Where did all this come from? I'm eating the same as I've always been eating, right? What's wrong with my
Absolutely.
candy for lunch? Nothing was wrong before.
Totally. Yeah.
What would you say is the most common misconception people seem to have regarding food?
I don't think there is one common misperception. Yes, I can't really speak to that. I would say that's more so depends on what the client's coming in for. So an example would be like this on a type 2 diabetes, they would come in and say, so I'm not allowed to eat cake or pie. So I think it kind of depends on the people because I see such a diverse clientele group. It really depends on the health condition, but each kind of health condition, people have their own idea of foods that they should or shouldn't eat. My IBS population might be like, irritable bowel syndrome might be like, I need to eat more salads because it's healthy. But sometimes salads really are the thing that triggers their IBS the most.
Oh,
So I'd say
so often. Yeah.
It really depends on the type of people I'm working with. Each kind of grouping of health conditions, they all have their own perceptions around what to eat or what not to eat.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you would like to add?
I think just for people just to start to think about like what is the 1 or 2 small changes that they can make. That's probably the biggest thing that I just add. And then when we think about making changes, like throughout our conversation here, it's like as parents, we just want to be mindful about how are we demonstrating our relationship with food, with our body, body image and such. And so that's why I'm just such a big believer in like, let's just set 1 or 2 small goals. Let's be able to ride the waves and intensities in life. Let's be sustainable. But really, how are we demonstrating our behavior with food and body to our kids?
Yeah.
That is just something that I believe so strongly in is like we have this great opportunity as parents or moms to set our kids up for success, to help them battle, all they're going to hear at school around bodies and what's a good body or not, or what foods are good or bad people might hear. And it's just to really have that neutrality around it and acceptance. And so kind of my big thing is like, let's make 1 or 2 small changes this new year that we feel is sustainable, whether it's around movement, whether it's around our eating, that really fuels us in a way that we feel is compassionate, that feels sustainable, and can really have an impact on our health.
So where can people find you if they would like to work with you?
Absolutely. So my website is adreakroeker.ca. I'm posting different blog posts with information, but people are welcome to reach out if they have further questions. If they wanted to book a session, you're welcome to do that. But even if it's just finding out, is this the right service for you to meet with a registered dietitian, intuitive eating counselor, feel free to reach out. My email is on the website, and you're more than welcome to contact me.
Perfect. And we will put all your info on our show notes and we'll share it on our socials also. I know some people like to connect through Instagram and stuff like that. I'm not sure if you have that, but we will share whatever you've got wherever we've got, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, just my website would be the best place to find me.
Perfect. And do you work with so people that have like benefits through work, can they, Absolutely. I don't even know how that works, but can they be like, here's my benefits?
Yeah. So I don't direct bill.
Okay.
But clients can submit the receipts.
Okay, perfect.
Most plans will cover registered dietitian services. Do just have a look at your own benefit plans to see about coverage. And I, of course, will issue a receipt and people can submit that to the insurance companies.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. It was
Thanks for having me. Great to meet all of you.
Yeah, thank you.
It was nice to meet you.
Yeah, I know January hits, right? And everyone's like, I'm making my New Year's resolution. I'm going to be healthy.
Right.
But we never have any idea how to start. So this was fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for having me. Great connecting today.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Awesome.
Well, have a good night.
Thank you.
That's it for Moms on Mics this week.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Moms on Mics Podcast, on TikTok at Moms on Mics, and join our Facebook group, Moms on Mics.
If anyone has any topics you would like us to cover, or if you have any questions or suggestions, you can email us at momsonmics@gmail.com or submit through our website, momsonmics.com.
We would also appreciate it if you could rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening on. It really helps the podcast move up on their charts so it gets more exposure. I hope you join us again next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.